the next installment of the Who We Are series. This is a series spent during the months of April and May to highlight the cultural vibrancy of the Lao community by having conversations with inspirational members of our community who are leading in their respective fields. This campaign was started by the National Council of Asian Pacific Americans and is aimed at celebrating and calling attention to the diversity of the AA-NHPI community. Happy APAM as well. And for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, my name is Chase McDara, and I am the Lana Fellow at NCAPA and representing the Laotian American National Alliance this evening. Tonight, I am always joined by my co-host, who I will also let introduce herself and her organization as well. So, Vakanda?
Hello, everyone. My name is Vikanda Luangafe, and I am the founder of the Lao Project, which is a collection of beautiful narrative portraits from Lao Americans, just talking about their walks of life. And so one of our participants is Olivia Sawai, who is a proud Lao Cambodian American from Long Beach, California, who is a self-taught artist, painter, and a graphic designer. Olivia? Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm so hyped to be here. I was just thinking about it earlier, just how powerful this moment is just for our community. And I don't know, it's just super exciting. I'm stoked.
Yeah, I mean, when you submitted your narrative portrait to the Lao Project and just putting your pieces together and really building your page, it was just so cathartic too, because there were so many things that you were saying that I just related, just how you found your identity and the lessons that you learned in order to reach your goals and just the goals that you were trying to achieve, all the vulnerabilities that you put into your story was just so relatable. And I really want to talk so much about that. And I know you're doing a lot of stuff. I mean, you went from being a teacher to now a graphic artist and a painter. You really just built a mural for a beautiful place. I mean, I saw that, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen it too on your website. So there's so much I want to talk about. And you really help the community when it comes to healing, especially during the pandemic. So before I go on raving about you, because I could go on and on, I want to hear you talk about yourself. How are you? And tell us a little bit more about how you became who you are as a Lao Cambodian American, how you became a teacher, and then go from there.
Okay, so thank you. I'm excited to, get into this story. I feel like as a Laotian woman, it's really surprising when someone says, "Let me hear about your story," you know? Um, but I really want to say that as a Laotian American, my identity really falls in honestly being a student of life. Like that's what I've learned from our culture. And I didn't have that identity before. I used to always tie it to, oh, I'm Olivia and I'm a teacher. Or, oh, I'm Olivia and I'm, an artist. And all those things are okay. But I think for me, I felt a little confused. And so I really love to identify myself as, the Laotian Cambodian woman, but I'm also a student of life because I feel like I'm always learning every day. And I'm constantly open to learning, and that for me, that's been a really interesting journey because I feel like I've always had that in me, but once you really go through the ebb and flows of life, you really realize, oh shoot, like these are moments that are really testing me. So how can I learn from these moments?
Mm-hmm. And what kind of moments are these that really tested you to find more of who you are, find you, really find you, ground yourself in the identity that you claim? What can you give us some examples of these testing moments?
Yeah. So I'm trying to go back to, from where it all started, but just I'm thinking back to just basically my childhood. Um, I was always kind of questioned, like, what are you? And then I would ask myself, like, I don't, what am I? you know? And I just remember someone, and it wasn't like a pleasant experience, but I got teased a lot. So it was like, are you Chinese? Or, what do you speak? Or just like silly questions that are just daunting to me. So I realize now, I'm like, wow, I started picking apart my identity at a very young age. So growing up, I never really felt solid. I never had that like solid foundation. Like, this is who I am. Um, Up until high school. And I was really like, yeah, this is who I am. I'm Lao and I'm Cambodian and I'm proud of it. So unfortunately, it did take me a really long time to get to that place. But I feel like everyone's journey is unique to their own life.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't take any of those moments for granted because it's definitely molded me into the person I am today. And it just kind of like made a really like full circle because I'm like, okay, I'm still feeling like I know who I am, but it's matured into like, yes, this is who I am. My culture is, I'm going to carry my culture on my shoulders because I'm proud to be Lao. And like, it's hard because I feel like I didn't understand that concept before as a young girl or like a child. That's a lot of pressure to have on yourself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Um,
And
Another moment, a recent moment was like during this pandemic. What was that? Go ahead.
we might have some technical difficulties, but
So during this pandemic,
oops.
oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, it should be good now. Are we good?
Can you hear me?
We can
Yes.
hear you.
Okay. Okay. I can hear you, Chase, and then
Okay.
And you
I
can
can
hear
hear
both of us.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I know you've mentioned there were many moments and you were going to mention another one. One particular that I remember you mentioning in the narrative portrait was that you started to really ask your family questions about their journey, how they came to America. And
Mm.
and yeah, tell us more about that, how that really helped.
So I remember I had to write her, and I don't recall like what the subject was, but I do remember that I wanted to write about my family and their journey here. So I asked my grandma, like, how did you guys get here? And she basically was like, okay, get ready to hear the story because it's going to be a long story. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to write this in my paper? Because it's going to be really long and I don't know. But she told me, like it was really hard for the whole family because it terrified me, like walking only at night, no shoes, just to get to, the Thai border where it was safe for them. And I couldn't even imagine, like, I'm like, what did you guys eat? And they're like, well, we did eat, but it was what we could find. So just hearing how they got there and then when they got to the refugee camp, just being there for a couple of years, just not knowing if they were going to make it to America kind of like really solidified, like, wow, they really went through this whole journey. Um, for me to, like I'm here now. um, but that just really, I was just in awe because I was like, I could never imagine me going through that. Especially my mom as like a baby. So after hearing that, I was just like, wow, this is something that I hold dear to my heart because it's a part of my family. It's who we are. We came here, or, they came here, and it just dawned on me to think about how excited they were to come to America and was like, oh, like we were free. And I feel like I'll never really understand that, but I just hold those feelings really close to my heart. So every time, like I think about my family, I'm like, wow, like they're amazing. Especially, my grandmother, like she was just telling the story so casual. And I was just sitting there like, wait, hold on. Like rewind. Like, what did you say? So yeah, that was that moment. And I wrote the paper and I got a really good grade. But to me, the grade didn't matter. It was just me putting my story, my family story onto the paper so that I don't know, maybe my teacher could be like, wow, I didn't even know that this culture existed. So let me search it up?
Mm-hmm. And and
Yeah.
and it's a paper that you can share to your future kids and to your generation of kids and grandchildren so they know where their roots come from. So that's really great that your grandma can share such a story with you. And how did you then carry forward now knowing the family's experience and knowing more a bit about your roots? How did you carry yourself forward through high school and continuing through all that bullying?
Mm. I feel like at one point I didn't allow myself to let that bullying really get to me as it did before as I was younger. I feel like, okay, well, they don't really know who I am. So they can say whatever they want. They can ask me whatever they want. I just know who I am. I know what my family, who they are. And I really just, from that point on, I was so proud to be like, I was so proud to be me, but also attached. Like, yes, I'm Lao, and yes, I'm Cambodian, and my family is from, you know, Laos and Cambodia. And I remember uh, I started having friends over because I was like more comfortable, like, okay, yes, they're going to see my grandma there. And I don't know, I just had like this, I don't know if you guys can relate, but I just had this like, okay, I don't know if anyone else's grandma lives with them and like if they're just like walking around in a sarong and like cooking and like
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, my friends are gonna come over and my grandma made like fried chicken and like kaunil, like sticky rice, and I was like, this is what we're gonna have for dinner. And they're like, dude, this is so bomb. I'm like, okay, yeah, like, yes, the food is good.
Oh.
So once I started to really allow my friends to be in my environment, they honestly like welcomed it. They were like, this is so cool. Like, we love your family, we love your culture, we love your food. So it was nice for all of that to come together.
Yeah, it's so nice to, it's so beautiful to hear you really stand secure in your own identity and who you are. And it's not that you need validation from others, but it's always so nice to hear from your own friends and people that you get along with at school to say those kind things about your family and your culture. It's different when it comes from a stranger outside of your family to hear them say, wow, this food is good. It's a different ring to the ear. So I know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I do want to, I have a question for you too, Olivia, just on like identity and sort of the challenges around it. And you've sort of hinted at like um the duality, right? Because in this series we've asked every sort of guest their experience of being Lao and American, and that duality of like how do you make distinctions of like my Lao culture versus my American culture. But for you, like it's a multifaceted question, right? It's how Lao am I, how Cambodian am I, how American am I? And so I'm wondering how you sort of navigate that or have navigated that in the past to become the person you are today, to really embolden the fact that you are proud to be Lao, you're proud to be Cambodian, and you're also proud to be American, right? And so how can you just share with us sort of how you got to sort of that self answer or that self reflection of like this is who I am, this is my identity.
Hmm, that's a really deep question. I feel like it comes in like layers, right? So I feel like that concept didn't really come to my mind until I was out of high school, like in college, because I was looking for. I was like, okay, I'm gonna move out. So I moved out and I went to college, but then I still felt like, I don't know, I felt like an outcast still. Like all those feelings kept coming up from like my childhood, and I was like, there's nobody Lao here at this university, not that I know of, you know what I mean? And so I was like, I feel like I should search for that type of community. But unfortunately, I mean, I didn't really know if there was some kind of club on campus or anything, because it was just like a commuting school. So I just went to school and then came back home. Um, but I do remember I was trying to navigate. It wasn't like a college moment, but I remember like with my family, they're like, oh, sometimes, like family, they can say things that are like kind of hurtful, but they don't mean it. They're like, oh, like you're not loud enough because you went to like an Orange County school, but like whatever, like silly things like that. And I'm like, dang, okay, well, I don't, where else could I have gone? um, so that's interesting that you bring that up, because I also don't feel Cambodian enough at like to this moment, because I don't speak Khmer. I don't understand Khmer. I understand Lao,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like I'm more closer to that side. But it's always a trippy thing to like navigate it now, especially when you're going to the market, because someone will speak to me in Khmer and I'm like, I don't want to be, it's like an older, like a grandma. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be rude. Like she's gonna think I'm being rude. I don't know what she's thinking and I don't know what to say. So I feel like it's really tricky to like navigate those moments. But I try my best. But overall, I feel like I'm still struggling with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Definitely.
it's still a struggle, like, I still ask myself, am I loud enough? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
oh, am I American enough? Am I Cambodian enough? Like, am I representing all three cultures equally enough?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think these are definitely themes that a lot of the millennial and Gen Z cohort of the Lao diaspora experience, right? And this question of like, how loud enough can I be, right? Is it enough just to like speak the language, know about the culture, or is it more about like really being able to really represent our culture in a way that's compelling to the generation above us, right? And that's something that personally for me too is just something I'm learning to still navigate and learning to tread lightly, right? Because I think we do owe some homage to traditions and cultures, but as we sort of grow into this diaspora community in America, as other Asian American groups have experienced, right? It's like we are sort of paving our own paths and really leading to different conversations that really are focused towards our community, and really this sort of helps us transition to like conversations about different. We talked about the challenges that you face, right, as the bullying growing up, and want to focus more a little bit on that and sort of like in your work, right? So share with us. We could even pull up our the clip A of our the art that you've done and shared on your social media. And so let's go ahead and do that, and show people sort of what you've actually been working on, and we can talk about sort of the challenges that have encouraged you or challenged you to really put out this kind of work. So let me go ahead and pull that up for us.
Yeah.
Um,
And as yeah, and as Chase is pulling it up, if you're just tuning in, to all those who are just tuning in, this is Who We Are, the Laotian American virtual series. I am Vakanda Luanga Faye,
my name is Chase McDara.
and here joining us is Olivia Sawai, a proud Lao Cambodian American from Long Beach, California, who is a self-taught artist, painter, and graphic designer. And now we're going to look into some clips of your work here with regards to mental health awareness. I remember, Olivia, you mentioned that this was something that you did to really engage with your audience and your community, especially during the pandemic. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I this is one of my favorite projects that I've done, and I've decided to do it annually. So this project is actually going to pop up within a couple of weeks again. Um, but I've always been a mental health advocate. Mental health has always been my thing. Because I feel like, there wasn't room for me to express my feelings, and I think that can be said, it could be like a cultural thing. Communicating feelings for me was very foreign. And so navigating that in life was like, how do I communicate my feelings effectively? And I still struggle with that, because I didn't have really good examples growing up. And so during the pandemic, I feel like I'm like, these are all new feelings that everyone is going through. Like, we're scared, I don't know what's going to happen. And so, me being like, I'm always that positive person. I'm like, okay, how can we change our perspective? How can we
Mhm.
lighten up the mood? And I was like, I want to engage with the community. I want to, I don't know, I want them to feel like that they're not alone, because we're all in this. And so with the mental health mini project, I basically wanted everyone to send me their favorite quotes, whether it be from a different person or if that's something that they have made up, or whatever that they wanted to send me, and I was going to create a piece of artwork with their words. And that one was so powerful because it sounded so simple that I was just going to create something with their words, but I actually dug deeper, and I like went to that person's Instagram, kind of like scoped out like, their feed, um, and really got to know them through their feed. And then I just came up with these images um, for them. And it was really amazing to see and hear the feedback. They're like if you go on my Instagram, there's one about basketball, and my friend was like, how did you know like basketball? I'm like, I didn't, but I feel like, those words really resonated with me, and a basketball court came up, and that's how it came to be. But that was really, I was really proud of myself for, giving that space to other people and creating that space for the community, because I remember feeling like, dang, we have to stay inside and this is scary. I kind of fell into the hole of like watching the media every day, and sometimes that's not healthy either.
Mhm.
So I just turned to, my creativity and like, okay, how can I bring everyone together? So that's how it was born.
Yeah, so your work sort of blends the two, right? Like, you're a mental health advocate and also your artwork. And so, if people haven't actually been on Olivia's page, her Instagram page is actually filled with different quotes that she's, sort of combined with the art component of it. And there's so many great sort of different quotes. And I'm wondering, sort of, is some of these quotes, I know that you said that, or you mentioned previously that it's somewhat curated, right? And so, wondering if some of the quotes that you've put out are some of your own from personal experience. And I know a lot of the different quotes. One that stuck with me, that I hopefully that you can speak on too, is the one that says, "Dear younger me, sorry it took me so long to show up for both of us. Thank you for welcoming me home. With love, me." And so, just like speaking on behalf of that, like, um, I know some of these are sort of intertwined with like identity as well. And so, hopefully you can speak on behalf of that. Like, how do you sort of curate those quotes? How do you curate your material? And how do you go about, like, I know like we talk about like vibes, right? And so, um, is it like, how do you sort of curate your material, and how do you put like output your stuff?
Thank you. I really love that quote too. That's like one of my favorites. A lot of it, most of the time, is from my personal experience. Um, Last year of August, I started to really experience like health issues. Um, and it really turned my life around because I wasn't really sure what was going on. You know, I was going through a lot of pain. I couldn't eat. Um, and so just going through that experience really like woke me up. I was like, wait, okay, there's so many things that I need to change. Like I need to change my lifestyle, my eating habits. And to some that may not sound scary, but for me that was incredibly scary because I was like, I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for the transformation, you know? And I noticed that along with this healing journey with my physical health, a lot of stuff is like coming up to the surface that I need to heal. So, like, you know, childhood traumas, just traumas in past relationships, everything that I've suppressed is coming back up. And so that quote is really special to me because I struggle like with my inner child. For some reason, I feel like there's a disconnect. And so just about, you know, this year I've been trying to get in touch with her. I feel like I've blocked out a lot of memories from when I was a child because I feel like some of them were so painful. And I've learned that instead of blocking those memories out, I need to, or I get to confront them and, you know, get in touch with my inner child, like tell her that we're safe or, you know, things like that. And I thought those things were silly. I'm not going to lie, but they really made the biggest impact because I was like, wow, just saying to my inner child that we're safe, like it probably released so much stress that I've been carrying on to my shoulders, the unnecessary stress, you know, like I don't know why I was carrying those things on my shoulders, but you know, now it's like, okay, I can understand why I did that because as a child, I kind of, it falls into the like being a Laotian Cambodian American kind of realm, you know, like I was very, I was the oldest sibling. So I feel like I kind of just went in head first, like, okay, let Olivia do it and see, she's going to report back to see if that's safe or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of like, that's a lot of stuff to go through as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds, it seems like having a moment of reflection,
Mhm.
of needing to look at where you are in your life and how you have responded to all these events in your life. What does that mean? Why did I respond that way? And it's just really nice to hear you talk about how you speak to your inner child, because in a sense it's almost saying, as if you are the one looking out for yourself, your inner child, you are the one loving yourself, your inner child, because who is to love you if not yourself? So it's really goes back to saying, really show yourself some compassion and self-love, and the way that you're practicing that is really beautiful in of itself, and sharing it with the audience, to have them engage with their favorite quotes, and you putting out your favorite quote as if you're talking to your inner child is such a great structural way of an example of what it means to show self-love. Well, here's an example of how I'm doing it, and here's how you can engage in it. And I think that that's so beautiful, because sometimes we, like myself, I go about thinking about how I could show myself some more patience and compassion when I'm going through hard times, when I'm frustrated. So what I do is I journal a lot, but it's always nice to see how others are doing it, because it's so fun sometimes, and sometimes you find you learn new things by doing new ways of learning about yourself. So thank you so much for engaging the audience the way that you do, with your art, with your prompt questions, with all of these questions for us to reflect on. So I really like that. And you talk a lot about lessons too, a lot of the lessons that you mentioned in what you've learned. So before we get into your lessons, I do want to pull up the your narrative portrait that you submitted to the Lao Project. It's just so beautiful, all those pictures and those words that you put in. So yeah, let's look at the Lao Project narrative portrait of your page. And for those of you who haven't seen it, you guys got to go read it, and we'll be sure to post it after this live. But let's take a look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I love how it gets to the end where it says shop around, and we're going to talk more about all that you do and your website. And yeah, but before we get in there, let's hear about these lessons that you've learned, and how you're applying these lessons into your future and what you see for your future.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So the lessons I've learned going off of my, my narrative, I think the biggest one for me is just to be present in the moment. I'm learning that that's so important. And being mindful of that, it's so hard, because someone like me, I'm an overanalyzer. I overthink, and I can get stuck in my head so many times, and I'm like, okay, how do I get out of this? So practicing just being present and mindfulness really, is changing my perspective, because I remember I got like a tarot reading done. Have you guys ever done that before?
Yeah, of
I
course.
have,
Who
yeah.
hasn't? Oh,
It's
nice.
so crazy. But yeah, she was like, the reader was like, all we have is this moment. Like, we can't go back to yesterday. We can't even go back to 5 minutes, and we don't even know what tomorrow looks like. And I don't know why, but in that moment, like, I've heard this so many times, but in that moment, it just really blew my mind. I was like, you're right. Like, literally, we can't go back to 5 minutes, and we can't go in the future. And all we have is now. And I feel like, to put it into perspective, like through a pandemic perspective, like that's so important, because we don't know what could happen tomorrow, and a lot of the times, yes, it does sound cliche, like we don't know what tomorrow brings, but it's so true, because we experienced that. Like, a lot of us had jobs, we, had security, and COVID came along, and then that some of that was just taken from us. And so I feel like being present really allows you to just be grateful and like really understand, you know, how time works. I feel like I'll speak for myself. I get so stressed about the future. Like, okay, I need to do this, do that. And I'm like, okay, I need to just sit down and just be present. I really love to practice it when I'm on nature walks, because then I start to like feel the leaves. I start to, you know, take pictures of like the flowers, and I'm like really appreciating what's in front of me. And I feel like that's such an, like, we talk about it all the time, but it's so hard to practice at the same time, you know, because we're in a society where it's like move, 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 move. And so how do we peel that back? Like just rewind it just a little bit so that we're here in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems harder to peel back with all of these meetings, especially Zoom meetings that are just linked back to back. So it's like hard to peel back because you know in 2 hours you have a Zoom meeting. So you only have 2 hours to be present. Do you just have lunch or what do you do? So I
Right.
understand. It's so important to really practice being present. I give a lot of credit to my mom. I remember my mom loves flowers, loves them. And she has so many flowers in her house. It's like a jungle house. And I remember when I was a little girl, she woke us up at 3 in the morning and said, "Come downstairs and take a picture of my flower. It bloomed. And it's only gonna bloom for 2 hours." And she was right, because after I took a picture of it at 3 in the morning, I went to bed, woke up at 10 a.m., and it was not blooming anymore. It wilted. It's like a very special flower, and she just knows her flowers so well in and out. But that's an example of how she lives in the moment, just really embracing those 2 hours while that flower is blossoming and is at its peak of beauty. She really planted that flower all year just to see it bloom for 2 hours. So she is really somebody who I admire when I want to think about how do I stay in the present. And she's the one who grounds me between all the Zoom meetings and all the tasks and agendas that I have to hit for work. Just not get lost in that. She grounds me. So, what grounds you, Olivia?
I love that. I love your mom already. um, so what grounds me? I feel like nature really grounds me. I love being outside. I love the fresh air. Sometimes I'll go to the park and, you know, take my shoes off and like really, literally like ground myself on, you know, like on the grass just to feel that, like, because I feel like as human beings, you know, we're supposed to be a part of this earth in a way that's like organic, right? You know, and I feel like sometimes we can lose that vision. We move so fast, you know, in this day and age. And so I really feel like being out in nature really puts me back into a place where I can just be like, okay, I'm here and it's time to be present. And just literally, if I see like a squirrel or something, that literally grounds me. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's, you know, like that's really, like I need to be present to really witness these moments. And just like as the flower, you know, like it only blooms for 2 hours, and you really have to be present to really take that in. And
Yeah. And these nature walks are so helpful to really clear your mind and all that clutter so you can think clearly and really make room to come up with new ideas and be innovative and think of all these crazy things that you probably wouldn't have thought of under a stressed mindset. So these nature walks are very important. I know I've been taking a lot of nature walks myself, and it makes me really happy. And you know what else makes me happy? Just looking at your artwork. I mean, when I look at your artwork, I just feel the vibrancy of the bright colors, and it makes me happy. And you have a lot of flowers and leaves on there too. So that makes me feel like I'm home, because it reminds me of the walls of my house and all of my mother's plants. and shadows of the plants all on the walls, and it's just a very beautiful experience when I look at your artwork. And I know that you did a mural for a boutique, so we could pull that up right now. But I want to look at how, you know, you have this video of you taking time to paint. I really want to hear about how you conceptualize what you want this mural to look like, and where you where you got that inspiration from. Where did it come from? But before we get into your mural and the future of your work, let's take a look at this video here of you creating this Yeah, everybody should definitely go check that out. And, you know, if for all those who are just tuning in, this is Who We Are, Laotian American Virtual Series. I'm Bakanda Loing the Fae.
I'm Chase McDora.
And here joining us is Olivia Sawai, a proud Lao Cambodian American from Long Beach, California, who is a self-taught artist, painter, and graphic designer. And what you guys just saw there is a video of her creating this beautiful mural. So, Olivia, how did you come up with the concept of the design? Where did it stem from?
Okay, so that's literally one of my favorite projects I've done so far. It's owned, that boutique is owned by an amazing woman. Her name is Dana, and that shop is curated. So every single thing, like if you guys were to go in that shop, you'd be like, oh my gosh, I want everything. And like I love shops like that because it's like, okay, you know, every time you go in, there's going to be something that like catches your eye. But basically, the concept for that mural came from her actual shop. Like there's candles, there's like fun shapes, there's other artists' paintings up, there's home goods that like I really love. I love home goods, vases, just like plants. And I felt like my art was already in favor of the store because it's kind of like a collage. Um, and so basically, I recreated what I felt like the store, I guess, like gave me in a feeling. Like every time I walked in there, like this is how I felt. Really fun and like welcoming as well because, it's a woman-owned business. And I really wanted to create different, like every section you can take a picture of and it can stand on its own. Like it's not like you'll take a picture of one section and it's like, oh, a part of the painting is missing. It's like, oh no, this is a vase, and then this is, a fun circle, and then this is a fun shape that I can literally take just one section out of. And it was so fun because I felt like, I don't know, I just had the autonomy to kind of just do whatever I wanted. And I sometimes that could be like a nightmare for an artist, but for me, I felt like I loved Dana and her store so much, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna create this for you. Yeah, and it was so fun. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and I can see so much of your efforts into that. I know, with everything that's going on, and I know when you mentioned that you really use that mural as an outlet
Mhm.
for managing your fears of the future, of the unknown. So I wonder, what do you see for, going forward? What are your hopes for the future? What advice do you have for those who want to transition from one job to a job that they really want to do, like you being an artist? What advice do you have to give? And I find it could be so valuable to hear.
Yeah. I feel like that's always a scary thing, because it's like going from security to I'm not really sure how I'm going to do this. And I still struggle with that. So I feel like definitely it depends on how you view things. If you want to, sometimes it's going to take time. Like you can transition from your 9 to 5 and then go into something that you love, like, I don't know, whatever that is, but for me, it'd be art and painting. Um, I really transitioned slowly, but also as of like this month, I kind of just took a leap of faith, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go all in. And that was really scary, but at the same time, it felt so empowering because I'm like, okay, I get to do whatever I want and I make my own money. I've never experienced that. And so I've always felt comfortable working for somebody else. And not to say that working for someone else is bad. Like, if that makes you happy, like, that's amazing. Like, there's no judgment here. But for me, I felt like this was the avenue for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I could still have my teaching qualities with, what I do. Um, but yeah, I would just say like if someone is thinking about, transitioning from 9 to 5 to doing something that they've always called their side hobby, like just go for it. Don't be afraid to take that step forward because you're doing it for you. You're taking that step forward for you. You're not doing it for anybody else.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, you got to do it for yourself. You're the one living your life and just going in there and really embracing your own desires because you only have one life. That is such great advice. I know a lot of the audience will have a lot of questions about this. Let's get a question in. I know we have one question here, so I'll ask the first question and Chase will ask you the second question from the audience. So the first question here is from Angel. She says, Olivia, where do you draw your inspiration from for your art in general? Do you find aspects of a Lao culture that you try to incorporate into your art?
Hmm. Thank you, Angel, for asking that question. So I draw a lot of my inspiration from my journey, um, my healing journey. And I feel like the colors that you guys see through my artwork, that really embodies like my energy. So, like I'm really a big fan of like green, like the light green, the pinks. I feel like if literally that's how you look inside my body, like it just looks like that. Like it's just radiating those colors. And another thing I draw my inspiration from is, my environment. Um, if I'm in the desert, that really impacts how I guess, like perceive it. And I kind of will take like a mental picture and then kind of like try and recreate that into my own work. Um, and then for the second question, I really feel like it kind of ties in with my journey as well, like as a Laotian. I'm really proud to say that I'm allowing myself to give the space to other Laotian Americans or, Cambodians or even Asians to talk about mental health because I feel like that's a different component on its own, like how Asians see mental health, how we go about it because it's such a different approach. And it can be like difficult to navigate that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. The second question sort of is similar to the first, but it's more expounding on like the future of what your artistry looks like. And so the question is, if you had the opportunity to do another mural, say on like the Lao diaspora or just like your self identity and reflection, what would you incorporate into it? And the second part of the question is sort of the color scheme that you sort of map yourself out with the different colors and the vibrancy of them. Is that ever has that ever been inspired by like the colors primarily used in like Southeast Asian cultures? So like I'm thinking like Buddhist temples that are very elegant, very just the mixtures of golds, the shimmering golds with like the really deep royal reds, and so stuff like that. If I would hope you can answer that.
I love that question. I feel like that's something for me to actually think about because I feel like that's definitely a question I wouldn't ask myself. But no, that's a really good question. I feel that if I were to do, let's say, like a mural or a piece regarding that, it would probably, I don't know, I feel like I would really focus on color. So for me, now that I'm thinking about it, I love, love, love orange and like the yellow, but it's not like a neon yellow. It's that like yellow that we see at the temple. It's kind of like a gold yellow. And I'm always sticking to those colors. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like there's a reason for that. So, my great grandpa was actually a monk, and so I feel like that's my way of like connecting with
Mm-hmm.
him. I didn't really get to know him. He lived a really long life, but when I was a little kid, he was just old. So I felt like that communication wasn't really good. But I really just admired him um, as like I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is something I can share with my future children, and I have photos. And so I really feel like if I were to do a piece for our culture, it would really focus on the colors, just to bring out just respect for the monks, the temple, and like our culture. And now I'm thinking about it, like when we go to celebrate New Year, everything is so vibrant, to the flowers, to like literally the food, like Thai tea, it's orange. So, I really would like to relate to that and bring that out in my work. But yeah, I
Yeah.
hope you answered the
No,
question.
yeah, that's such a great answer. I mean,
Definitely.
it's really, yeah, it's really drawing in those colors of your culture to embracing those colors into your art. So, yeah, thank you so much for that. We have time for one more question. Sorry to the audience who are just booming with questions. It's just crazy. But we have one more question that we're going to take. This person emailed it in. And she wants to know, and her name is Jamie. Jamie wants to know, with mental health, how do you deal with your mental health when you're hitting rock bottom? How do you build your support system?
Hmm. That's a really good question. Thank you, Jamie. So I really like to be transparent with my audience. If I'm really at rock bottom and I'm like, I'm not feeling this, I will literally, I mean, not that I will put it out there, but I'll be transparent, like, hey, I'm not always positive and I have my struggles. But what helps me is to really, like you said earlier, Vakanda, like I journal a lot. And then if I don't feel like journaling, because sometimes I don't want to use my hand because I'm just like not in the mood. It sounds silly, but I will literally record myself talking, like, oh, I feel really heavy today. And I just, it's kind of just like I'm not thinking about what I'm saying. I'm just saying what I'm feeling in the moment, and I'm just like rambling on, rambling on. And I find that that really helps me to get all those like anxieties out.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Mm-hmm.
that also with other people, you know, it can look different, and that's okay. Like meditation works, but sometimes it doesn't work for me. I feel like I need to kind of move my body. I need to be outside. And also, one thing that I would like to share that, you know, when I am at rock bottom is just to be gentle with myself. I tend to really be hard on myself when I'm in rock bottom because I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I just have to remember I'm human too. I don't need to be perfect all the time, you know. So just being gentle with yourself and just know that whatever you're going through is gonna pass.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I mean, and so where can people go to continue to follow your work, especially during hard days when they need an outlet? Tell us, where can people go to?
Um, you can go to my Instagram, which is at sawai.co. So I post a lot on there. I'm on there most of the time. That's the biggest platform that I use.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, sometimes, you know, other than posting my artwork, I will like post videos of, you know, just discussing things that may be hard to navigate. Just because I'm going through that, it doesn't mean that I'm like a pro at navigating through struggles. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna talk about this because I know that I'm not the only one thinking like this.
Wow. Well, but you're creating space for people to come together and feel comfortable to open up about emotions that are hard to talk about. So thank you so much for all that you do and all that you contribute. And to all of those who are following, we will be sure to put Olivia Sawai all contact information after this live. But we want to thank everyone for tuning in. A special thanks to you, Olivia, for joining us.
Thank you. And I just want to thank everyone for joining in as well. Like, I'm just so overwhelmed with the love, and I don't know, it just makes me feel so loved. And I feel like, you know, it feels good for someone to feel like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
definitely.
definitely all that. Yeah, like what Chase says, definitely. It's all that positive vibes and energy that you put out. I mean, we can only soak it in and really exude it back out. So, thank you so much for again all that you contribute. It all comes in circles. So,
Right.
Olivia Sawai, a proud Lao Cambodian American from Long Beach, California, who is a self taught artist, painter, and graphic designer, and a big advocate for good mental health. So thank you again. Coming up next week, we will chat with Miss Joy Christine Gausiva from Las Vegas. She's a professional DJ who many of you may know her as DJ Miss Joy. We'll chat with her about her visions to tour the world DJing while advocating for human rights and environmental issues, plus much more. That's all next week on Thursday. This is Who We Are, the Laotian American virtual series. I'm Vakanda Loingafe.
I'm Chase McDora.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Have a good evening.